Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Walk on Wednesday. And on Walk on Wednesday, on Walk on Wednesday, what makes today unique is we take somebody out there that we think is a pretty unique person that people love and adore, and then we put them on we give them 5 or 10 minutes on the spotlight and talk about their life and how they ended up here on their spiritual path. And you know whose today is, Kaustubha?
Tell me.
I surprised Kaustubha. Well, I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. She's very popular.
It must be Mara. That's the most popular person I know.
It's Mara. Today we're doing Mara's our Walk on Wednesday. Look, everyone's excited. I'm looking at all the Zoomers. If you're new to the show, welcome. We do this live every morning. We've got about 74 people here. And today we're going to pick out Mara.
All right.
Okay, Mara, unmute yourself.
All right, I'm unmuted. Good morning.
Your journey home. Now, you said it consists of something about like a mysterious dark-skinned man with a mustache, another strange naked mendicant with dreadlocks,
And a shape-shifting.
Then a UFO abduction and a Ouija board. Tell us how did this come to play?
This is why I should let you tell my story, Raghu, because it would be so much more interesting. I was saying that I didn't want to do the Walk on Wednesday because I feel like I've had this like very boring baby stepping to Bhakti path of like Raghu has been like delicately spoon feeding me Bhakti for years now. And I'm finally on like a half dose.
more like poking you in the butt with a needle. Get on there. Come on.
That too. I think one of the transformational things in my life that made me start thinking about spirituality, because I was never really raised with any sort of religion or religious path, was when I was 27 years old. I was living down in Austin, Texas, managing a restaurant,
I didn't even know any of this stuff. Okay.
No, this woman's got a whole secret life.
Down there in Austin, she was in like a country and western band, lead singing, kind of wild, getting drunk every night.
Then she started. Wait, don't go there. But then you got the Ouija board.
Yeah, then I got the Ouija board. Then my mom got diagnosed with lung cancer, and so I came back up to help out, and she passed away after just a few months, less than 6 months from when she was diagnosed. She died. Wow. And I was always really grateful that I was at a place in my life. I was managing a restaurant in Austin, but I recognized that that was no longer a priority for me.
Good for you.
And my employers were they were great about it, but and so I was at a time where I could just pack up my life basically, or not even pack up my life. I left it in Austin at the time and came back up and
what year was this?
2009 to 2010.
Okay.
So I came back up and just spent like lots of really special days with my mom as she was sick, and had lots of, you know, conversations, and was really grateful because I know a lot of people don't get to have those conversations with their loved ones.
Right.
And so I was with her when she left her body, and I sort of felt like there's something more going on here than like just the brain and heart shutting down and like the organs shutting down. You know, I felt like there was like a real experience that happened. And, you know, at 27, like my friends hadn't really been through anything like that. People are so uncomfortable talking about death, you know, and like in the aftermath of that, when people would come over, they would try and, you know, like, the condolences were so awkward. People are so uncomfortable with it. You know, I mean, Raghu, your father died when you were young. I'm sure you went through something similar.
Sure, but I'm feeling awkward right now, if it makes you feel better.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm joking. Please change. It's beautiful.
But anyway, so, you know, and that's one of the things I really liked about the Bhakti Yoga path is, you know, I mean, they talk about death, but also like there's answers for everything in ways that like other spiritual paths don't necessarily have like clean answers on like little questions, big questions. So,
yeah. There's a lot of, I find there's a lot of, they throw the word faith around on other spiritual paths a lot. We're less into faith. We're more into like, I want to see it. I want to prove it to me. We got some faith, but we don't even deal with it really. I feel like there's these like hardcore questions, and then someone gives an answer to it. Well, that's nice. And then there was
Raghu enters the picture.
Then there was a prominent figure, perhaps, in your life.
Let's see. Kaustubha. I bet it.
Yeah, I was thinking Kaustubha or somebody maybe who lives more closer to you. Anybody there?
Bhakti Papa Tony. My dad has been a
Papa Tony,
huge influence.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bhakti, sure. I was thinking someone a little bit younger, but yes, Bhakti Papa Tony, yeah, for sure. Anybody who's perhaps unshaven and
she was going to say Tarun.
Maybe went to India. Maybe went to India with you. Something.
Well, I mean, Bob Healy is.
Bob Healy, sure. Bob Healy. Sure. We want to give Damodar Swarup. Yeah, we want to give him credit. Sure.
Goyal Garanga.
I was thinking someone more like an older brother to you. Someone like that. Someone anyway.
I'll have to think on that and get back to you, Raghu.
And then you also had tons of great association with Raghunath Swami, because Raghunath Swami would come to Super Soul and you're always there doing some service, which was, you know.
That was really incredible. There was one time when you had that dinner in the backyard for Raghunath Swami.
It was a little dinner.
It was tiny. I don't even know how I got to be there. Well, because you wanted me to cook, but I don't know how I even got to do that. And Gita Priya was there too, Kaustubha-ji.
Yeah, there's a great photograph of that.
Oh, really?
I'll find that. It's on Facebook. Yeah.
What were we doing?
We're all sitting at that
it's
like two picnic tables put together.
Why did Raghunath Swami come over that day? I can't remember.
He because he would regularly come up and visit you in June.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway, it was really sweet, and it was a very small group, and there was this one older devotee. I don't know who he was. I've never seen him. I don't think I've seen him since. But and I think it was after dinner, we're cleaning up, and Bhakta Mike was just teasing me, and he's saying, "Oh, Mary, you know, when are you going to become a devotee?" And of course, I didn't have a quick answer, so I'm like, and then before I could even say anything, the older devotee was saying, "What do you mean become a devotee? She already is a devotee." And I just thought, like, it was such a sweet, touching thing because, you know, I mean, he didn't even really know me other than this, you know, this one evening we'd spent. And it just like sort of, you know, really made me see it because I was like, you know, like everybody else, like, oh, this is kind of culty, but, you know, they have good philosophy. But I just thought it was such a sweet way for people to look at everyone, at the world.
It is, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It is a sweet way to look at the world. Everybody's a devotee. They're just covered or not covered or sort of getting uncovered, and that's what we're here doing. We're trying to like get uncovered.
And now she's just doing tons and tons and tons of service.
I know. That's what happens when people get a lot of service. I always say you must be a sincere chanter because you're chanting Krishna, engage me in your service. And like, okay, you want service? Here it is. Nah, too much service, Krishna.
You know, like she does a lot of stuff like it takes actually a lot of time to like post all this stuff and then post it on YouTube and you know, every day it's you know, you got to put hours into it. And then she does all this stuff on Patreon now. And as we do more and more stuff on Patreon, she's the one that actually has to do all the processing of that stuff. And then she, like, yesterday she wrote to us and says, is it okay if this person does a program like on Friday night? I'm like, yeah, sure, it's okay with me. You know, you're the one that's going to have to do all the work. You know, and I was thanking her for doing all this work. And she, oh, I'm not doing anything. Oh, it's actually hours and hours and hours of dedicated. And it kind of like, she's more responsible than me and Raghunath in terms
She's a
of
little bit more responsible than me.
getting stuff done.
Sure.
So we need someone like that behind.
I didn't even know she did that. She posted
that?
stuff?
Someone has to do that?
Yeah, Raghu's like, you mean the podcast doesn't magically get up there?
It doesn't go on YouTube itself every day. No, I know that, and I appreciate it.
No, I'm grateful for the service. And it's funny because when we started with the podcast and we were all in India together, and I was thinking, yeah, Kaustubha, please show me how to do it. And then, you know, when I started uploading it and everything, you know, February, March, and I was thinking, this is great, but, you know, I'm not going to have this kind of time for this once the catering season starts in the summertime, you know?
Right.
And then sure enough, you know, my entire catering season got canceled pretty much because of COVID. So I've been like, okay, I'm so grateful to have this regular service.
It's like the whole reason that the lockdown came about is due to Mara's sincere desire to serve.
Sorry.
She's moving the world.
Apologies.
Yeah, Krishna prefers you in like pure devotional service, just like working for Krishna. He doesn't want to let you go. He's very attached to you.
So Jamuna Jai is asking, how did you meet Raghu? I think she picked up on that. Raghu was that person.
The snake charmer.
Me? Oh, come on. Come on. This is embarrassing. You did our teacher training, right?
Yeah, I did the first 200-hour teacher training at Super
How did you
Soul.
find out about it?
I started going to Raghu's weekly yoga classes.
In Chatham.
In Chatham. Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, what's funny about this? I've never said this to you, Raghu. But,
Here it comes. So this is
ready. Get ready.
No, I mean, at that point in my life, probably like 2016, 2017, like I was drinking a lot. Like I would go to the bar like most nights.
I can't even imagine that.
Well, what's funny was you used to say in yoga, like you would talk about how, I don't remember the context of it exactly, but it was like, you know, you can't, if you want to get up in the morning and meditate, or if you want to get up in the morning and meditate, after a while, you're not going to be going to the bar and getting drunk every night.
And
I remember, yeah, exactly. And I was like,
is there some problem with the two? They don't fit together?
Yeah. But it's funny because I haven't heard you ever say that for like years anymore, you know? And so I was like, was he just talking to me?
Mara, I've got something to share with you. Yes, I was. And Mara, due to her intense devotion, now her father's on the show every day. Papa Tony is her father. You got to get Papa Tony in. We want to hear the whole story, Mara. We got to get Papa Tony. You got to go behind the scenes.
I think if Papa Tony would stop wearing a shirt, he could be like our next naked Viking too. He's got that beard and everything.
Well, thank you, Mara.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We're grateful you're here, and everybody is very grateful.
Our chat board is just being
blowing up
with
it's been crazy.
Appreciation.
Mara, appreciation. If we had flowers, we'd be throwing them at you. Well, we have a very interesting Bhagavatam today because we're going to talk about a lot of these things that Mara was talking about. Did you notice that? Kaustubha, while she was talking, we were like, we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, maybe. You mean like that understanding that there's something beyond, there's something beyond the body, and When
she said that, I was like, we were just talking about that. me and Kaustubha have our 4:30 a.m. bromance call. That's what I call it.
Is that how you characterize it?
You don't look at it that way? I think it's a special time.
All right.
You and me connect. You and me connect.
Yeah, we connect.
It's just you and me.
All alone. Just the two of us.
To us.
To us, sure.
Okay, let's do this. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before we start in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmadatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
It was the first time in any Bhagavatam class that I've seen the speaker do the invocation while holding a cup of mushroom chai.
Oh no, this
Casually.
is something new. It's my new secret beverage.
What do you got?
Oh.
Secret ingredients?
Secret ingredients, man. It's delicious.
Okay.
It's really good. All right. All right, my friends. Let's see. So we're in Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 34. The great personality Brahma, with great attention and concentration of the mind, studied the Vedas 3 times, and after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of religion.
You didn't switch it out for Dharma there.
I didn't, yeah. Is the highest perfection of Dharma. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
the highest perfection of Dharma.
So again, real quick, in answer to Maharaj Priket's questions about what is a person meant to do when they're about to die, and what should they not do, and then so in this chapter, Shukadev Goswami has been describing different paths of yoga, but this is the one that he's actually recommending, and the whole next chapter is going to be 100% focused on this. But he brings in Lord Brahma here. We're going to be hearing about him further on in this canto too. But he said, in text 33, he said, for those wandering in the material universe, that's all of us, there's no more auspicious means of deliverance than what is aimed at in Bhakti-yogi, in direct bhakti, in direct devotional service to Krishna. And then to back it up, he says, this is not just me that's coming up with this, right? We can go back to that original being in the universe, right? That person who was born from the lotus, from the navel of Lord Vishnu himself, and that was personally instructed by Lord Vishnu, Brahma, who's granted the greatest level of intelligence in the universe. He's the engineer of the universe. He studied the Vedas not just once, not twice. He went through it 3 times with a fine-tooth comb, and he came to this conclusion that actually, developing one's attraction for God is the highest dharma.
I like how you say the engineer. Usually we say the creator of the universe. It sort of simplifies it. He's actually a qualified engineer of the universe.
There's a lot of engineering. Just every little thing, it's like the eyeball,
That's like an engineering feat of genius.
Yeah. And
it's like, what have you created? What have people created? I'm a furniture maker. Okay. Have you ever created an eyeball?
Well,
everything in creation is by Lord Brahma. We're not even giving the credit to Krishna. We're giving the credit to Lord Brahma.
Yeah. And it's interesting that even that our conversation just went this way, because I think it's going to be relevant to what we're going to read today at greater length, which is we're going to read a commentary by Srila Prabhupada where he describes a way that you can perceive God within yourself. And a skeptic will approach that and say, this isn't thorough, this isn't, they'll apply their skepticism to it. But do we apply the same level of skepticism to so many other so-called scientific ideas? And the way that academia works, and ultimately the way that human society works, is if enough people start coming down on one idea and speaking of it as if it's untrue or even ridiculous, then people begin to shift you begin to shift that way, even without rational kind of thought going into it. And so, nowadays, in many circles, like there's a term, intelligent design, right?
Right.
And and this is something that's embraced by a lot of religious people, or let's say even sometimes fanatically religious people. So
Right.
someone that might be characterized as fanatically religious. And because of that, that just further supports other people that are coming from another angle, from another academic or so-called scientific angle, that is saying that the whole idea is ridiculous. But actually, it's just common sense that, the things that science creates, like let's say a camera lens, is basically an imitation of the eye. But the eye is like a far more sophisticated, subtle instrument that's connected to a computer, right?
And then the whole idea of if the lens is the eye, who's doing the seeing?
Who's doing the seeing? And sure, who's doing? If the eye is a lens, then the mind is a computer, or you could say the brain if you want.
And the ear is the microphone.
And the ear is the microphone. And the coding, there's a coded message, just as in computer technology. A coded message goes from the eye to the computer, and then of course, as you're saying, who's the user of the computer, and ultimately who designed the computer. And to think that something like an eyeball and the whole system that's involved, all the technology that's involved in human sight, just popped up by itself, that it had no engineer behind it, is actually an insane idea. Right? It's like, it's
actually
crazy.
Don't make me bust out Shelter lyrics right now, because here
Bust
I'm going.
it out. Go. Hit it.
Okay. In defense of reality.
Okay.
All right, you keep talking. I'm going to have to pull up these lyrics.
Oh, you don't even know your own lyrics?
Well, in case I forget them.
And I'm supposed to just keep talking? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you today the one, the only, the greatest Krishna core band of all time. It's Shelter.
That might be under contention with some. Oh, yes. Shelter, in defense of reality lyrics. Here we go. This is, well, it's one of those same things. It's people are just into atheism. Just will say, what are you talking about? This is like, get real. Are you crazy? Get real with your life. You're going to believe in some higher being, and they're so damn condescending, isn't it? But what is real? So here's our this song was called "In Defense of Reality." Lyra Juno is ready to mosh around the living room. Get ready. She's losing her mind. If she stage dives off the couch. Security.
Nice.
How secure are we? Making our plans in a castle of sand as our dreams get dragged to sea. You say you're independent. Well, is that a fact? It's by creation's donation you are maintained, but you'd rather turn your back. I'm in defense of reality. Today's modern science, that's your modern religion. It's guesswork taught as fact. Don't talk back. Blind faith in their decision. You say explosions started creation, and we're just chemical combinations. But would you take that same stand if there was a gun in my hand, or would you beg for your salvation? We'll see. I'm in defense of reality. For example, this is the actual underlying premise of everything people are learning in public high school, that everything just exploded. All you are, all Kaustubha is he's not Kaustubha, that guy that we love, and Mara, that lady. They are just a bag of chemicals on the periodic table. So if that is your absolute truth, then if I put a gun in my hand and point it at your head, what's the big deal? You're just a bag of chemicals. It's a chemical spill. There's no big difference. So, but people don't believe that. When it really comes down to it, if you actually threaten a person with life or death, they can't live this philosophy. So here's the next point here. Actually, these conclusions prove their insanity. A creation without a creator. Can it be? Just like a painting without a painter. Absurdity. No, I don't want to run away, because spiritualists are accusing of running away from reality. No, I don't want to run away. I want to embrace reality. Boom!
Nice.
What do you think about that?
I think you're the bard of your generation. I like it.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to tell it like it is. I actually don't. I mean, religion, it can be one of these places where people are trying to not face reality. But I think just hearing Mara's story about her mother dying, we want to go deeper into death. We want to understand, well, what is life then? What are we supposed to do in this life? And I think if we're hiding from death, well, if someone argues, well, you just want a cool way to give some substance and some meaning to your life. Well, yes, we do. We want to understand, well, why am I here anyway? If you don't even ask those questions, how are you even living? It's like driving a car that has no direction to go. You'll waste your time, you'll waste your resources, and then you get to a point in your life and you'll be like, what was it about? These are like these very essential questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What the hell am I doing here? And what should I be doing? These questions of Maharaj Parikshit is like the questions that everybody should be asking themselves when they wake up in the morning. So I don't think it's running away. I think it's the opposite of running away. I think it's like embracing the real questions of life.
Yeah. Facing reality.
Otherwise, why go to work in the morning? And this is why people who just get into these programs of wake up, go to school, or after school you go to college, or after college you get married and then go back to work. That's why they have these breakdowns. And that's why if they ever take like acid or mushrooms or psychedelics, they're always like, oh my God, what am I doing? They have to take some psychedelic drug to ask those questions. We're encouraging, and when I say we're, I mean me on behalf of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're encouraging people to ask these questions from as soon as they hear about these questions. Why am I here? Why am I working today? You don't need an acid trip to figure this out. We should all question those things, and to really identify that, hey, life is incredibly short. And that's why, again, with Mara's story, a lot of us got ushered forth in our spiritual life when someone died unexpectedly. And it just stirred up all this stuff. And oftentimes, I know in my own life, I saw my death in that person's death. Like, oh, I get it. That could be me at any second. I thought mom or dad, I thought they were pillars of safety and security. There is no security. And once you start getting to that point, there's nothing secure. And that generally leads people in one of two directions. It's like, what the hell? Who cares? Or some existential reality, or some spiritual traditions. And you'll find that happens historically with people who actually think about life. They just get all existential. Why am I here? Life is meaningless. Life isn't meaningless. There is a reason why we're here. And the yogis or the transcendentalists or just the thoughtful people say, we're here to grow. We're here to evolve. That's why we're here. And then some people, it's just like we have a time bomb chained around our ankle. And I shouldn't hide it. This is materialism. I hide it under my shirt. And I walk into a party and people are like, hey man, what's under your shirt? Nothing. Well, I hear it ticking. What's under your shirt? It's nothing. The materialist is the one who's hiding from ultimate reality, that there's a time bomb and it's going to go off at any moment. And we're trying to go to a party. We're trying to have a party. How do you even have a party with a time bomb on your ankle? You have to be in so much illusion. And so we also don't want to just walk around and look at the time bomb and freak out. We want to examine, what is this? What is actually dying anyway? Am I dying or is the body dying? And I think that's what this purport's going to get into. I'm just ranting this morning.
But especially what this purport's going to get into?
What?
Is that if we use little common sense, and Prabhupada's going to use that word, we can perceive that God is directing us from within.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So why don't we read the next text, 35.
All right. Ready. My Maha screen is not working for some reason. Can you read it? Please?
Okay. Text 35.
Thank you.
The personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being,
along with the individual soul. So that's saying there's the Atma and there's the Paramatma. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Okay, so what's it's saying that we're able to see or to perceive.
Yeah.
And you could also say hear or whatever sense, sometimes I think that sight is considered kind of like the first sense, like same thing in the Yoga Sutras. It describes it, the drista, the seer, then the seer abides in their own true nature in Yoga Sutra 1.3. So here it's describing seeing or in our sense perception, and in taking help from the intelligence. We can understand by looking at these two deeply. Look, you got a lot of that new drink there.
Yes, secret beverage.
It says, so that this fact that God is situated within, that there's two souls within, we can understand that if we just think about, contemplate the act of seeing and of taking help from our intelligence. And so now there's a long commentary on this. And I want to share a couple of things. One is that Sariputta, Dr. Richard L. Thompson, who was a Vaishnava as well as a scientist, published a lot of great works, including Raghunath's favorite, Alien Identities. He wrote a whole paper on this commentary that we're about to read.
It's pretty cool. He wrote a whole paper on this commentary.
And that, it's really worth reading. But what he points out is that although this sounds like kind of like simple language, really the course of scientific history is catching on to the simple principles that are being described here. And he describes the different kind of how the scientific community has kind of progressed towards understanding certain things about consciousness, etc. I won't get into all that. Maybe I'll dip into what he writes in a bit. But what I want to point out right now is that there's 12 points. I've kind of broken this commentary into 12 points, and I'm going to read them right now quickly, and then we can go through it. But point number 1 is that we can begin to perceive the presence of God directing us within through reason, combined with an attitude of service. Okay. Step 2 is that we perceive the body, therefore we are not the body. Okay. If I'm perceiving something, that means I am not that which I am perceiving. There's a seer and there's the seen. So the fact that we perceive the body indicates that we are not the body. Our ability to perceive, point number 3, our ability to perceive has not come about by our own work, but it's something that's been supplied to us, right? There's a supply, or something's been supplied to us. It's not that we've developed this on our own.
When you read this stuff, are you like, why doesn't the whole world know about this?
It's so simple. Yeah.
It's so simple. The whole world. It's going to happen. We just might have to die. It might have to be 100 years from now. But eventually I can see everybody like, yes, of course, this makes total sense.
How could society not fully... Okay.
But even, why didn't they teach me this in the Catholic Church? Why didn't they teach me this?
Or in school. Okay, 4, that which we perceive and our ability to move is also supplied to us. So our ability to perceive is supplied to us. The things that we perceive are supplied to us, and our ability to move throughout this world, these are all supplied to us. Number 6, the fact that we are dissatisfied. This is a more profound one. The fact that we are dissatisfied with matter is an indication that by nature we are beyond matter, that we are spirit. Point number 7, faith in the idea that consciousness is material cannot be established through the scientific method. And Prabhupada is going to point that out. In other words, if you're going to be skeptical about what he's saying right here, why don't you turn that same skepticism towards the theory that all of this just developed on its own. Right. And you'll see that can't be proved. You can't establish how consciousness develops from matter. You can't demonstrate that in a laboratory. Yeah. Point number 8, we can experience God within in the form of intelligence or inner guidance. Point number 9, we can choose how we wish to be guided towards illusion or towards truth. And this is the essence of our free will.
point number 10. This is clearly a distinction. There is clearly a distinction between the self and the super self, between the one that's guiding and the one that's guided. One is supplying the other, right? Supplying with guidance, supplying with everything that we've described previously. Point number 11, common sense can take us to the conclusion of realizing three features of existence. There's matter, there's the soul or myself that perceives, and then there's the super self that guides. And beyond common sense, through taking direction from Vedic texts, we can understand that there's a person behind it all.
Yeah, I don't know if my common sense would have come up with that theory unless I took advice from the Vedic texts. Then common sense could kick in. I was like, okay.
No, because people do. And as we read it, I think you'll see that. And that's what Prabhupada is going to point out, is if you think about it this way and you think about it that way, it makes sense. And then number 12, we can realize the existence of that person by the grace of that person. Okay.
There you go. That's it.
So let's read this commentary. You can't pull it up, huh?
I didn't see. I didn't. No, I didn't see.
Okay. So then I'll do the reading, and then we'll bounce.
Okay.
Okay. So again, I'll read the translation. The personality of God, Lord Shri Krishna, is in every living being, along with the individualized soul. There's two souls within the body. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Purport. Now here's the first point, which is we can begin to perceive the presence of God directing us within through reason combined with an attitude of service. Here's the commentary. The general argument of the common man is that since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can one either surrender unto him or render transcendental loving service to him? To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Srila Shukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Actually, the Lord is not perceivable by our present materialized senses. But when one is convinced of the presence of the Lord by a practical service attitude, there is a revelation of the Lord's mercy. And such a pure devotee of the Lord can perceive the Lord's presence always and everywhere. He can perceive that intelligence is the form direction of the Paramatma plenary portion of the personality of Godhead. So in other words, he can perceive that the act of my intelligence and the direction that I receive in life is coming from somewhere beyond me. Okay. Now here's the next point. We perceive the body and therefore we are not the body. Prabhupada writes, the presence of Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for the common man. The procedure is as follows. One could perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists, right?
I exist, yes.
I think, therefore I am, right? We all
Yes.
know that we are conscious that we exist. He may not feel it very abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. Okay, just by thinking, just with a little common sense, he can feel that the hand, the leg, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels, but as such, the hand, the leg, the head, etc., cannot be identified with his self.
It's like the Greek philosopher, I can't remember who it was, it says you cannot stand in the same river. It's always, is that the whole quote, Mara? You can't stand in the same river. The river's always flowing by. So even though the body appears like it's actually me, it's like a very slow moving river. It's always, as the hair grows, it gets cut. As the skin cells flake off and new cells are grown. Therefore, the body is always in flux. It's always moving like the river. And there's always an observer watching that river flow.
Right. And that's the point, watching it. There's an observer watching it, right?
Well, I just sit here on this bank of sand and watch the river flow. Okay.
Lucy Raghunath.
Oh, it's Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan.
On a walk on Wednesday. Okay, so then he goes on. Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate his self from other things that he sees.
So the natural conclusion is that the living being, either man or beast, is the seer, and he sees besides himself all other things. So there's a difference between the seer and the seen. Okay, I'm not my body because I see my body, right? Simple enough. Okay, next point, that our ability to perceive has not come about by our own work, but it's been supplied to us. Now, by a little use of intelligence, we can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or to move independently. All our ordinary acts, and this, now he's going to get to what's called Sankhya philosophy in Vedanta, right? Or in Sankhya.
Yeah.
All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. Our senses of perception and of action, that is to say, our 5 perceptive senses of 1, hearing, 2, touch, 3, sight, 4, taste, and 5, smell, as well as our 5 senses of action, namely 1, the hands, 2, the legs, 3, speech, 4, evacuation organs, and 5, reproductive organs. And also our 3 subtle senses, namely 1, mind, 2, intelligence, and 3, ego. 13 senses in all. This is a Vedantic or a way that it's a traditional way that yogis analyze existence. All of these are supplied to us by various arrangements of gross or subtle forms of natural energy. We didn't create our own ability to see. It's been given to us. We didn't create our ability to hear. We didn't create our ability to think. All of this has been supplied to me, the observer, and I'm observing the world through this equipment that has been supplied to me. Okay. Next point. That which we perceive and our ability to move is also supplied to us as well. So not just my ability to perceive, but that which I perceive is supplied. So Prabhupada writes, and it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. Right? Next point. The fact that we are dissatisfied with this is one, I just think Prabhupada takes it to next. I just wanted to dip in, to give you an idea of what this work by Richard Thompson is like. Basically what I just read, the commentary that I just read, this is what Sariputta or Richard Thompson writes about it. He said, this passage from Srila Prabhupada's purport can be seen as a further elaboration of the argument developed in a very different context by von Neumann. Von Neumann argued that each stage of the process of perception within the body can be completely analyzed, at least in principle, by means of the known laws of physics. Thus, how photons of light impinge on the retina, the chemical processes of the photoreceptor cells, and the transmission of impulses through the neurons of the brain should all be reducible to interactions governed by the differential equations of physics. Okay?
It was so difficult to listen to those Sariputta lectures. You have to have that total scientific brain. You'd be like, yes. That's what it was like sitting in those classes.
Yeah. Well, he goes on. So basically what he just said there is that you can break down and reduce how sight works. He says, when this supposition is combined with the conclusion that quantum mechanics always requires an observer separate from the observed system, it follows that the observer must be distinct from the physical. Okay, so, Prabhupada's saying this in a simple way, but then his student is stepping forward to defend it with, scientific, in the context of modern science. Right? And so that's a whole article. Just by reading that, for me to read that article today would be just too dense for us to all get into, but it's something worth checking out. That article is entitled, let me see.
Yeah, we should make that public.
Srila Prabhupada's insight into the issues of modern science by Dr. Richard L. Thompson, Sariputta Das. Okay, now the next point. The fact that so he's already established that there's matter, which includes our body, which includes our sense of perception, even the mind, and which includes that which we perceive or matter, right? He says the fact that we are dissatisfied with matter, this is the point that I'm drawing from what he's about to write. The fact that we are dissatisfied with matter is an indication that by nature we are beyond matter, that we are spirit. Think deeply about that, you know. This is what life is meant to contemplate, ideas like this. So Prabhupada writes, as this, what we read already, conclusively proves that the ordinary living being has no independent power of perception or of motion, it's all supplied to us, and as we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by nature's energy, we conclude that he who sees is spirit, and that the senses, as well as the objects of perception, are material. The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence. That is the difference between spirit and matter. The fact that we are dissatisfied is an indication that we are not matter. Is it, you know, because we're existing in a body of matter, in a world of matter, and we feel dissatisfied, it's indicating that we are of a different nature. Okay, now next point. Faith in the idea that consciousness is material cannot be established through the scientific method. And what is the scientific method? It's a method of procedure that has characterized natural science since the 17th century, consisting in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment, and the formulation, testing, and modification of hypotheses. Right? That's the scientific method. Prabhupada's going to point out that, well, I'll read it. He says, there are some less intelligent arguments that matter develops the power of seeing and moving as a certain organic development, that we are just a combination of chemicals, of matter, that our consciousness, our awareness is just a blend of material ingredients. He says, but such an argument cannot be accepted because there's no experimental evidence that matter has anywhere produced a living entity. Trust no future, however pleasant. Idle talks regarding future development of matter into spirit are actually foolish because no matter has ever developed the power of seeing or moving in any part of the world. Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are two different identities, and this conclusion is arrived at by the use of intelligence. It should be the simplest thing to understand. And if you still disagree, then go and create some in a laboratory. Otherwise, it's just your religious faith that is kind of like.
Right. Dr. Thompson used to speak about the information filters that would happen. You know, I was just listening to a podcast on this, you know, how our justice system is so broken. And so when people get convicted of a crime, we're supposed to like be innocent until proven guilty. But it's like
right.
they've already figured in their minds, they're thinking, well, he must be guilty. And so their job is to find evidence to support that. And so it's a podcast all about how using that way of thinking, they're very often persecute the people who've never done the crime. And so they throw out any other evidence and they won't even let it in sometime with this information filter, but just to hold to the conclusion that this person is guilty. So Dr. Thompson would say, well, you know, we have this theory, everything came from matter, and then we'll find everything to support that. And if there's anything that any scientist finds that will go against that theory, it's not even accepted within the realm of possibility.
It must be wrong because it doesn't fit the theory.
Right. So that's just, it's guilty before proving innocent because they've already came to the conclusion of what it is, which was a theory in the first place. And that's why today's modern science is the religion. It's a lot of faith. And slowly things are shifting, and slowly scientists are seeing things slightly different, especially with quantum mechanics and physics. And it's sort of like a newer ball game. And so Sadhaputta, or Richard Thompson, he did that whole thing on archaeology, the book Forbidden Archaeology, on anomalies that just won't fit within their paradigm. And he lists scientific findings that just like you find a child's doll in rock strata that there shouldn't be any, there should just be Neanderthals living at that time, but there's like sophisticated toys or sophisticated tools. What do you do with that when you find that? This is supposedly, according to the scientific theories of the present day, that this shouldn't exist. What do we do with it? We file it away somewhere.
This, if this were true, the whole theory goes out the door that we, developed from apes and step by step, right?
Yeah, and he has a whole book collecting all these anomalies that scientists find.
It's a very interesting idea, of as you mentioned, knowledge filters, kind of I don't know if they coined the term, but they use that term. And the idea that why, it's not like it's a well-written book, and it's not like some wild ranting or anything like that, but it's just kind of a sober look at, why, put yourself in the shoes of a scientist who's built a career on, books that you've written on a particular theory. And it's based on that research that you've done that's been recognized, won awards for, won funding for, right? That now you're running a research lab in a leading university that's being funded with hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. You have a career based on this research, and then you start to find evidence that completely goes against all your research. It's like, human nature is that one might be inclined to disregard that, to rationalize some reason why this information is invalid.
Sure.
But what he does in that book, which is a big, thick book of, that goes through, they present their theory, and then they go through all this history of archaeological digs and so on, saying like, as you're saying, something that was found in the strata that countered the theory of evolution, and then it was rejected on the basis of A, B, and C. Even though this is saying so, this must not be valid. Then they would show how much weaker standards were used in the evidence that was found that supported the theory.
Sure.
Right. So, like, I think he gives example of the Java Man dig. And
yes, the Java Man dig.
And
let's speak about the Java Man dig this morning.
And they found there that like locals were actually doing the digging the stuff up and bringing it to the scientists, and the locals were being paid by how many things they would bring, like bones and so on. And so then, the locals would find, oh, I can break the bone, and now I can bring two things instead of one,
Smart.
And so like, I hope I may be, we could go to the book Forbidden Archaeology. I may be saying the wrong dig or the wrong something like that. But the point is that if you check that out, you can see that here they're accepting, they're not applying the same rigor to evidence that supports their theory as they would to evidence that counters their theory. And so in this way, the actual evidence that supports the theory gets is only that which has made it through the filter of their biases or their it goes through the filter of what will support their theory. Let's put it that way.
We call this, and some people hate this, hardcore atheists hate the fact that we say things like the science of self-realization. Yeah. But it is a science. It's just an individual science, meaning I can't necessarily observe Kaustubha's connection. I guess it could seem like Kaustubha's step into spiritual life and his transformation. It could just be fabricated in his mind. See, the problem is you have to enter the experiment yourself. You have to let go of the ego. You have to add devotion to your work. You have to refine your intention. And that stuff only you can monitor. And then Krishna, and I think we were saying this earlier, or the source, gives you direct revelation, or by you quoted this thing, was by the grace of the Supreme Soul. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But it's in this, by the mercy of the absolute truth, you can understand the absolute truth. And so we have to personally enter into that experiment. And therefore, then it is observable. As you start following the principles of a bhakti, self-realization becomes self-evident. And it's not just because, well, now I believe, and now I join my church, or now I join the ashram, and now and I see it. No, it's actually, you actually have a different set of lenses now, and you have different realizations. And anybody who's been on this path a little bit will see the magic start to click in. I like how Shama Sundar was saying that the other day. It's quite magical.
You know, we've run out of time, Raghunath. But why don't we pick up in this commentary tomorrow?
Okay.
I shared a link to this. It's actually an old publication called Perspectives on Bhaktivedanta Institute, which has not only that article, but quite a few articles.
When it gets going, you lose track of time. Thanks everybody joining us. What a fun show today.
Thanks, Mara.
And thanks, Mara, for walking on and telling us your story.
Oh, hey, we got to mention, I'm sorry, the recovery meeting is canceled today.
Oh, really?
Stacy Cabrera is teaching at 6:30 this morning.
Stacy Cabrera, G. She's a very well-loved teacher. Everybody loves her so much. And she listens to the show regularly, and she's been doing yoga for years.
For thousands of years?
Thousands of years. Back when there were dinosaurs. The message board was lighting up today. They were talking about dinosaurs. Previous Kali Yuga, those dinosaurs. And from previous ages. And they're not just your past. They're potentially your future. Think about that, Kaustubha.
Sounds like another podcast to me.
Yeah, that's a whole podcast.
Raghunath and the Dinosaur Podcast. The Dinosaur Podcast with Raghunath.
Goblins,
for the future.
Goblins, ghosts, dinosaurs, and UFOs. It's all real. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.